You have my word that I will fight for you.
So tonight, we didn't win, but we will continue to be patriots.
In her memory, you can continue to serve the people in the 18th.
We made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us on KHOU 11+ for our continuing coverage of last night's election.
Let's start with the race for the White House. This morning, the Associated Press and CBS News are projecting former President Donald Trump is now the president-elect. As of now, the Trump-Vance campaign is leading in the Electoral College and in the popular vote. As for the Senate race here in Texas, Senator Ted Cruz has declared victory over Congressman Colin Allred with 53% of the vote.
Now to the HISD bond package. Prop A is projected to fail with 58% of the vote rejecting $3.98 billion in bonds aimed at addressing the district's infrastructure. Prop B is projected to fail as well with 58% of voters deciding against upgrading the district's technology infrastructure. This would have set aside $45 million to improve tech across Houston schools. Now, here are three big stories we're tracking this morning, starting with the balance of power in Congress. Right now, CBS News is projecting that Republicans will take control of the Senate. Plus, we're closely monitoring issues at voting centers nationwide. Bomb threats at several polling locations appeared to originate from Russian email domains, according to the FBI. And finally, President Trump spoke to supporters last night, telling them he would not disappoint.
We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that.
So, former President Trump will be returning to the White House after CBS News projected wins in key battleground states.
Early this morning, Trump claimed victory in Florida before the race was even called. CBS News correspondent Jared Hill is at the White House with more.
I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America.
Early this morning, the Trump-Vance campaign claimed victory ahead of CBS News projection that former President Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
This was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond.
Speaking to supporters in West Palm Beach, Florida, he promised unity.
It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite. And we're going to try.
At Vice President Kamala Harris's alma mater, Howard University, supporters grew less enthusiastic. The crowd later dispersed after a top campaign official told them Harris would wait to address supporters and the nation later today.
We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted.
According to CBS News exit polls, the state of democracy was the biggest issue for Harris voters. When it came to Trump supporters, it was the economy.
The Democratic ticket all the way for human rights.
While he was the president, everything was nice and smooth, and I still had money left in my pocket.
A vast majority of voters nationwide described the economy as bad after heading into the voting booth yesterday. Jared Hill, CBS News, Washington.
Former President Donald Trump's projected win marks the first time an impeached president would return to the White House.
The former president held his watch party in West Palm Beach, Florida last night, and that's where we find Ivan Rodriguez. Ivan, thank you so much for joining us. The 47th president is not official yet. Now, how long does it take for that final call to be made?
Well, Ron, Stephanie, we are expecting also in terms of calls for Vice President Kamala Harris to now concede to Trump here in the coming hours. Also expecting her to hear her delivered remarks from Howard University later this afternoon as well. So now President-elect Trump will be receiving that phone call from Vice President Kamala Harris.
Ivan, what is Trump saying his priorities are going to be with his second term, and how could this term look different from his first term?
Well, a lot of those priorities we've heard on the campaign trail, and some of them in his remarks earlier this morning to some of his supporters at the West Palm Beach County Convention Center. They include the economy, immigration, and a big focus for him last night was ushering this golden era for America. For example, we've heard a lot of things in terms of policies like no tax on tips. A lot of things like these policies, though, will require congressional support. He was very excited last night to see that the GOP secured the Senate. Also now keeping an eye on what happens in the House. And if he can secure both chambers, he will be able to do a lot more than if we're seeing that chamber be divided.
All right, and finally, are there any plans to hear from the former president today, Ivan?
We're not exactly sure if we're expecting more comments from the former president. At this point, I think all eyes now will turn to the remarks delivered by Vice President Harris. If we do see Trump, I'd expect we possibly would see remarks after Harris delivers hers. But I do want to make a quick point here, because a lot of emphasis has been put on those key battleground states, that so-called blue wall that's so important to Democrats. We know how those states have gone, but I've been taking a look at other states that Harris actually did win, comparing it back to 2020, and I came across New Jersey. Harris actually won New Jersey with 51.4% of the vote. And if I take a look at what happened in 2020, Biden actually carried New Jersey with 57% of the vote. So even in a Democratic state like New Jersey that Biden carried so easily, single-handedly almost, you see even a tight race in that, painting a wider picture of what we saw across the country.
All right, Ivan Rodriguez, thank you for joining us live this morning.
All right, it's 10:07 now. Let's switch things up, why don't we? Check on the latest on the forecast. As you can see from our Gulf Freeway cam, looking pretty good here in Houston.
Meteorologist Kim Castro joining us now.
Yeah, it looks nice out there.
Yeah, yes, we were just taking it in, and I was looking at traffic conditions as well. It was
You were
just
processing
a
the whole
moment to
thing.
marinate, all the things.
It was a mini moment of zen, perhaps.
It really was, not sponsored. Kim Castro, we really liked that sun out there, though.
It was a selective moment of zen. Yeah, I like that. We're go. It's kind of nice to just look at the camera shot and let it sit there for a second. Nice and bright blue sky right now, looking back at the Gulf Freeway towards downtown. Galveston Island also seeing a couple of nice wispy clouds out there, but for the most part, clearing conditions. Katie seeing a little sun glare there from the camera angle, and it is just beautiful. Today, all in all, we're waking up to nice conditions, especially the further north and west that you go. Those temperatures are even cooler because the skies are clearer. So 60s out by Bryan College Station, Brenham 68 degrees, Bush Intercontinental Airport 76, and a hair warmer the closer you get towards the coastline, though Galveston's still holding on to 76 for now. Temperatures are going to warm into the mid-80s. Today is your rain-free day, so get your errands done, go outside for lunch, anything you got to do. You do not have to worry about carrying an umbrella with you. A 20% chance for a scattered shower tomorrow, and pretty much the same thing on Friday. It won't be until Saturday that we really start to see those rain chances become a little bit more prevalent on Future Track. So tomorrow morning, a scattered shower is possible. I think by tomorrow afternoon, and especially Friday afternoon, you might see a little downpour here and there in and around the city. Saturday morning, that's your next front. I'll have more on that and a tropics update when I see you back here in a few minutes, guys.
All right, you have a lot to talk about today. Thank you so much, Kim. Let's go back to the presidential race. CBS News projecting former President Trump as the winner.
Vice President Kamala Harris did not speak at her rally last night, and this morning, still no word yet out of the Harris campaign since results started rolling in. CBS News correspondent Jared Hill joins us live this morning from Washington, D.C. Jared, any idea of when VP Harris will address the
nation? We are getting a better idea of when we could hear from Vice President Kamala Harris. Her campaign is putting out some notifications saying that it'll likely be at some point this evening. It's going to be on the campus of Howard University. What exactly she speaks about, how she addresses this crowd of folks who are pretty near and dear to her, again, because Howard is her alma mater. That's yet to be seen, but we are expecting this to happen within the next couple of hours, early this evening.
Jared, with Trump as the projected winner, what is the CBS News exit poll showing now?
Yeah. So the big thing when we're looking at trends, right, at this point is that we saw the economy really being a top driving force for former President Trump and getting out this coalition of voters that really kind of went beyond the typical bounds of what we think of as the Republican Party, and in particular of the MAGA base. On top of that, we also saw here that there was a significant number of folks who don't typically vote in a lot of elections. These so-called low propensity voters did end up showing up for former President Trump at the polls, and that was the case in some of those crucial battleground states, places like Pennsylvania, and in particular in some of those suburbs around the big cities like Philadelphia, which ended up going either slightly red or softer blue, kind of all a part of the strategy of lose by less in some of those regions. The other thing that is being dissected at this point is, the racial and ethnic and gender lines. How did this all go in that respect? There was an anticipation by the Harris campaign, or at least an effort by the Harris campaign, to pull as many of these either conservative or more moderate women, and in particular white women, over to the Democratic Party, over to her side. That didn't necessarily pan out either. One of the big questions in some of these states where we saw abortion on the ballot as well as the presidential race, they voted for abortion and they voted Republican. Back to you.
All right, Jared, great breakdown there for us. Thank you so much for joining us live this morning. At 10:11, while the world wakes up to this news, the balance of power in the House is yet to be determined. But CBS News has also projected that the U.S. Senate will flip to Republican control. That includes the race here in Texas after incumbent Senator Ted Cruz secured his victory over Congressman Colin Allred last night.
Devon Roming is live outside election headquarters this morning where ballots are still being counted. And Devon, both candidates spoke last night.
Yeah, Ron and Steph, both candidates spoke rather highly of each other last night during their speeches, but didn't stray away from the focus of their campaigns over the course of the last few months. Now, Senator Cruz has served in the Texas Senate since 2013 and defeated Allred after capturing 53% of last night's votes. Last night, he was joined by his family and supporters in downtown alongside Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. Cruz took the time to thank his supporters while also thanking his opponent Colin Allred, who he commended for running a, quote, hard-fought campaign. Meanwhile, Congressman Allred was joined by his supporters in Dallas, and he too congratulated Senator Cruz on his victory while also thanking the women who were a huge part of his campaign's focus on reproductive rights.
You have my word that I will fight for you, for your jobs, for your safety, and for your constitutional rights.
There are so many brave Texas women who've told their stories. And Allie and I will never forget them, and we will never stop fighting to overturn this abortion ban here in Texas.
Now, Cruz, who had a lead over Allred from the beginning of this race, spent much of his campaign focusing on border security, calling for stricter enforcement on illegal immigrants, citing several violent crimes involving alleged illegal immigrants, while Allred, who out-fundraised Cruz, centered his focus on reproductive rights and a bipartisan border security bill. Now, this Senate seat has been dominated by the Republican Party here in Texas since 1988. Live in Houston, Devon Roming, KHOU 11 News.
Ted Cruz reelected again. Thank you so much, Devon.
All right, Ron. Well, Cruz, as you said, reelected again, now serving his third term. Let's take a look at the numbers and the election board here and the balance of power in the Senate. So right now we're taking a look at reported vote totals in some of the biggest counties we've been watching in the race for U.S. Senate. So we're talking about Tarrant County, Harris, and most importantly, Maverick. So I want to take a look at historical data from 2018. We've got Cruz versus O'Rourke. So here we have Maverick County where Eagle passes. Then we have Harris and also Tarrant County, which has been closely watched. Now, this is once again 2018. Watch what happens when I press the 2024 totals. You saw that blue flip to red, and once again, Cruz was campaigning heavily on the border crisis and what he's going to do to fix that. And that can only be the assumption that that's what helped turn that county, which is a big one when it comes to the border issue. We'll continue to monitor the voting totals as they're reported this morning. For now, Ron, we'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Steph. Turning now to the race for Harris County District Attorney. That race is still too close to call. Both Dan Simons and Sean Tier used to work for the District Attorney's office. Simons, the Republican, and he worked at the DA's office for 3 years before leaving in 2017 to open his own private practice. Tier is the Democrat. He was also at the DA's office and left last year to work at a private firm. Then he announced he was running for district attorney. Tier defeated incumbent Kim Ogg during the primary earlier this year. He gave a brief speech last night.
This race has been about you all from the very beginning. And we are going to fix that office. And we're going to fix that office with the help of so many people here.
And Tier went on to say that he'll give a bigger speech once the race is called. But both candidates acknowledge something needs to be done to deal with the current backlog of cases.
I'm a school nurse, retired, 35 years, certified school nurse, so I have been in the trench. Yes, those campuses, many campuses, need renovation, repair, as well as a rebuild. But we cannot release one penny, let alone 4.4 billion, to a human who cannot manage our money that we have in hand right now.
And our view is that
All right, turning now to the HISD bond. This was a hot issue for voters. A lot of voters divided on this proposal.
Prop A failed with 58% of voters rejecting the $3.98 billion in bonds aimed at addressing the district's infrastructure needs. Prop B also failed by, again, 58% of voters deciding against upgrading the district's technology infrastructure. Now, this would have set $44 million aside to improve tech at HISD campuses. With that in mind, we head out live to our Jalissa Garza, who's live for us this morning at HISD headquarters.
Hey, Jalissa, we know Superintendent Miles issued a statement overnight. What did he have to say?
Well, Steph and Ron, this is not the outcome that Superintendent Mike Miles was hoping for in his statement that he issued last night. He said he was very optimistic about the bond proposals. He also mentioned that the district will continue to transform for all students and that he cannot promise the aging facilities and systems will never be a barrier to student learning, and that the district will do their best to keep long expired heating and cooling systems running. But on very hot or very cold days, they're likely going to have to close campus to keep students safe. Now, I want to break down those propositions again. Proposition A, asking voters to approve $3.96 billion to update infrastructure. Proposition B, aimed at upgrading technology across schools and issue $440 million to fund that. Now, political experts say with these propositions, we saw both parties go out and campaign against the bond. Some political experts say the result of these propositions not passing is somewhat of a pushback towards Governor Greg Abbott.
Because this is the cornerstone of his strategy to try to change failing schools. Since the voters turned it down, it may be a kind of harbinger of things to come in terms of what happens when a school district gets taken over.
While clearly a large percentage of voters said no to both of these propositions, some people we spoke to said that if HISD is no longer under the state's authority, they would put a bond on the ballot again. In the meantime, we do have Mike Miles' full statement up right now on KHOU.com. Live in Houston, Jalissa Garza, KHOU 11 News.
All right, Jalissa, before we let you go, we do have a couple of questions for you. First of all, we know you've been covering this story for quite some time. Which schools would have benefited from this money?
Well, Steph, two schools that we actually got to go inside and see a few months ago was Paul Revere Middle School and Fondren Middle School. When we talked to both principals there, they mentioned that they needed some upgrades when it came to, cleaning up mold in the classrooms, air conditioning, fixing those, and also security. That was a big thing for Fondren Middle School.
What were the exact infrastructure upgrades that they wanted to implement with this money?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, mold in classrooms was a big thing, air conditioning, also trying to be able to expand the district with having more schools, since we do see a lot of students do attend HISD. As for the technology upgrades, that would have been a lot for software and different tools that students and teachers use inside the classrooms.
All right, Jalissa, finally, talk about how this bond proposal brought two parties together.
Yeah, Steph, we saw both sides of the aisle. We saw the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, both campaigning against the bond. And political experts say when you have two parties coming together against one issue, it's really difficult to win. And we saw that.
All right, Jalissa, thank you so much joining us live this morning. Now, earlier this morning, Ron and I had the opportunity to speak with Superintendent Mike Miles. Here's that interview. This morning, we are continuing to break down what you may have missed on election night.
As your education station, we've been following HISD's $4.4 billion bond proposal. Right now, HISD Superintendent Mike Miles is with us.
Superintendent Miles, first off, okay, propositions A and B involving HISD bond proposals not likely to pass. What are your thoughts on that?
This was an obvious kids' first decision to make, and last night the kids did not win that. I don't know if anybody's celebrating, and the opposition, if they're celebrating, I hope they do a victory lap around Bonham Elementary School and the trailers out there, and Benavides and the deplorable air conditioning and cooling systems we have there, and many other places in the district. This is not a win for our kids. We did not put kids first. Those are my thoughts.
So what can you do? How do you plan to make upgrades to these schools without the bonds? I mean, what do you have to tell parents and teachers and kids?
Yeah. So every year we invest in our schools. Obviously, we are so far behind. We haven't had a bond since 2012 for high schools, and 2007 for elementary and middle. We have a lot of need: security, safety, other rebuilds, buildings. So we'll do what we can, and in a couple months we'll try to keep the buildings warm. A couple months after that, we'll try to keep them hot. We'll go out cool. We'll go out for grants. We'll go to TEA to try to get some more money from the legislature, but it won't make up for $4.4 billion worth of need that our schools have.
Well, as of this morning, 58% of voters voted against both propositions. Why do you think the people who voted against it were so heated about this?
I think some people conflated politics with putting kids first. I think they're thinking about the intervention instead of what do our kids need. Mm-hmm. And the kids need these facilities. It has nothing to do with the politics or adult issues, adult agendas. This is about kids. We have improved the education of the kids academically. We're going to continue to do that. We're going to raise their achievement. We have facts to show that the kids did well, and we want everybody to celebrate our kids. And when they don't celebrate the kids, when the kids do well, and when they don't support a bond for the kids, I'm not sure we can trust that group of people who voted against the bond to really want to put kids first.
The vote wasn't even close. Do you feel like it was a referendum on you as well?
No, my administration and I were called in here to do an intervention, raise student achievement. We're doing that. We did that better than any other administration in the history of HISD. And the kids stepped up to the level of expectation, and so did the teachers. So we're doing that. The intervention is not the bond is not part of the intervention. We don't have to pass a bond to get out of intervention. We went for a bond, even though 3 superintendents before me did not even put it up for a vote. Mm-hmm. And so the community did not support for 12 years this bond. You got to ask those who oppose, when are they going to do that?
Well, one of the things I want to go back to, because you mentioned in your first answer about the AC issues, that was a big problem starting off the school year. Were you saying that some of this money should have, the propositions passed, have gone to fixing those AC units at several schools?
That's right, no question. We put $1.03 billion of the bond into health and safety, health including air conditioning and cooling systems. You guys report this on the news every August and September. You're going to do it again in April and May, that we're fighting the air conditioning wars, and in a couple months we're going to fight the heating wars, and so we know that our schools need that. You know, we didn't cause the derecho or barrel, and yet rooftop units got blown off, chillers went down. I mean, every time we have a storm, we have more and more problems. So yes, the bond would have gone to help that. Now we'll do the best we can. Our kids deserve better facilities, but they're resilient. They're going to be unstoppable. They're going to step up, and we're going to continue to give them a good education.
Now, this this particular issue seemed to do something that not other races in the country seem to do, which was unite a lot of Democrats and Republicans against the issue. Is there a message from voters that the school district needs to address?
So what we need to do is to continue to help people who don't have the information. And what we need to do is also call out the people who are misinforming. The union, for example. I've been trying to give a lot of grace to people. But when the union, for example, just misinforms and lies and has no solution, we'll ask them, when the next time we have an air conditioning problem, we have to close the school for that. Or when they go and you have broken toilets and holes in the floor, what is their solution? They've got none. All they have is the status quo. We're not going to go back to the status quo. So I think over time we're going to convince people that the kids do need to come first, and that's what it really takes. We talk all the time. We'll put kids first. We want to take care of our kids. Well, let's put our money where our mouth is, and let's help our kids.
Another issue at hand that's on the minds of all the parents is always school safety, but in particular, the most recent incidents with students having guns on campus and students at Lamar High School. So 2 students recently were found with guns. And so what are you doing as a district to ensure the safety of both staff and most importantly, students?
I'm going to answer that question, but first, I hope you get to ask the opposition who defeated the bond to go to Lamar and the other schools and say, what are you doing about the safety of our schools? Because the bond would have helped with that. We're still putting money into police officers. We increased the number of police officers. We have 80 more armed guards at our elementary schools. We have more patrol vehicles. We're doing everything we can. We still need more than that. We have 221 schools without a vestibule. And that, so that there's a single point of entry, a vestibule where you go in at double doors and then you get seen and then you go into another double doors. So it's a layered approach, and we're keeping our schools safe. But as you just intimated, it's a dangerous world out there, and we need to do even more to protect our kids.
Well, would emergency funds be available? Have you spoken with the governor about this?
So there's a lot of districts and a lot of schools, and yes, we will get more. We will try to get grants. We'll try to get the legislature to put more money into safety. So hopefully we'll get some relief, but there's not enough money in the state to cover all the schools that need help. We do need to rely on bonds, just like every other district does every 5 or 6 years. Again, last 3 superintendents did not even put one forward because they didn't think the community would support it. So you got to ask 12 years before me. Okay, not recently. Why is there not a support for our kids and their facilities?
One of the things on that note that we've been hearing from parents is that they don't believe the district is going to use any money that would be granted for what they say they're going to use it for. What are your thoughts on that?
The lack of trust.
Yeah, misinformation, miscommunication, outright lies from some people about what we're doing. We right-size this budget. It's the most fiscally responsible board and administration that this district has ever seen. And so the money would go directly, and plus there's a lot of controls, guys. There's the oversight committee, there's laws, there's our own audit, there's independent audits, all of that. So the money would go, in fact, we put on the ballot exactly where the money would go, and that holds us by law to spend the money where we say we're going to spend the money. So maybe we didn't communicate that enough to the people who don't know. We communicated it well to people who should know better, who then just miscommunicated that information.
And what are you going to start doing today, this morning?
I'm here.
I mean, aside from talking to the public.
Yeah, so the thing we will continue to do, as we have done over the last year, is work hard and fight for our kids, both academically and in every other way. So, for example, we'll keep moving the instruction forward. We'll keep putting great teachers in front of them. We'll keep raising the student achievement scores like we have. We'll still support our kids. And then we will fight the wars and try to prioritize facilities to the extent that we can. That's what we're going to do.
All right, and finally, we've heard from parents nonstop. They're always going to voice their opinions, especially when it comes to kids' safety and their education. What have you heard from children about what's happening since the TA takeover?
So I go to schools all the time. And I've been to 45, 50 schools this year, 130 last year. I talk to kids every time I go, and they are thriving. Go to Bonham, go to Pershing, go to Herod, go to Sugar Grove. That's where I was yesterday, Sugar Grove and Herod. And go to those schools and talk to the kids. They're doing a great job. And the teachers who are teaching them, I mean, our capacity has grown. The quality of instruction has grown. I see it even from last year to this year has been good. So the kids are the ones who are really working hard. They're meeting the level of expectation. That's what they're doing. We have to reward them. First, let's celebrate them when they succeed. Let's have these people who oppose the bond celebrate our kids when they succeed, which they did last year, and they're doing this year on the NWA and other assessments. Then let's support them, the kids, if we ever go out for another bond.
And we know you have other interviews to do this morning. Any final words before we say goodbye?
We're just going to keep moving forward. This is another obstacle placed in front of kids and the administration. But you know, when the chips are down, the real leaders step up, and the kids and the teachers will step up too.
KHOU Superintendent Mike Miles there, and we're moving on now. The FBI is clearing up details behind several reported bomb threats at polling locations across the country yesterday. This is video of locations in DeKalb County, Georgia, and in Westchester, Pennsylvania that were shut down and evacuated due to those threats. Now the FBI says many of the threats appeared to originate from Russian email domains. But those threats led officials to share even more warnings about what they say is a high level of foreign influence and disinformation. That includes videos that the FBI says are fake. The Bureau noted 2 instances of its name and insignia being used to spread misinformation about the presidential election. The 2 videos reportedly made false claims about voter fraud and encouraged people to vote remotely. Again, both videos and their claims are fake. Officials say they expect this kind of misinformation to continue beyond Election Day.
10:32 now, and our election coverage continues here on KHOU 11+. We know experts are closely following the returns from key states around the nation.
That includes the big races right here in Texas. Our political expert Bob Stein tells us what he considered to be the biggest surprise from last night.
I was extremely surprised about how tight races were here in Harris County. The district attorney's race, a county attorney's race between Menifee and Smith. Menifee wins with, barely 50.4%. The district attorney's race, which was, of course, a hotly contested race in the Democratic primary when Democrats ousted Kim Ogg for Sean Tier, and he barely eked by with 51-49 over Simmons. Tax assessor's race, Ramirez edges out former county commissioner Steve Raddick, 51-49. Even Ed Gonzalez, a popular and well-known incumbent, he only beats his opponent Knox, a former city councilman, 53-47. Put it bluntly, this was a red night, not only in Texas, throughout Texas, but particularly in some blue cities and counties like Harris.
And if you want to see the complete list of results, just head to our website. You know what that is, KHOU.com.
All right, let's pivot back to the forecast now. Here's a live look this morning in Galveston. Mostly clear out there.
It looks kind of cloudy.
I feel like we need some sun.
Is that just the camera? Is that just our eyes, the camera?
I don't know.
You know who would know? Kim Castro.
Yes, she would.
Hey.
Where's the sun, Kim?
The sun will come out today. So it's already coming out for our northern and western counties, and we'll start to see that northerly breeze continue into the Gulf. So More sun than anything today and nice and dry. But we do want to pay attention to the Gulf Coast and specifically the tropics because we're looking at Hurricane Rafael, a strong Category 2 hurricane right now, barely under Cat 3 major hurricane criteria. You'll notice it's headed straight for Cuba. So making a landfall there near Havana over the next few hours. And then from there on out, pushing into the Gulf. Now, this is going to be something that we track, yes, but there's still a lot of uncertainty as to what it'll do once it enters the Gulf. What we do know is that it's going to weaken, so it's going to interact with land, that'll tear up some of its organization, and then it's going to battle with unfavorable conditions in the Gulf. There's going to be a lot of upper level wind that'll rip apart the top of the storm, not allow it to ventilate properly. So for that reason, you'll notice Rafael continues to decrease in intensity. The National Hurricane Center dropping it into a tropical storm by the weekend. So Sunday morning, it should have 60-mile-an-hour winds and then 40-mile-an-hour winds and then becoming a shell of itself by the time we start the work week. So the good news for us is this strong upper level wind that is going to pull the storm apart. And something else that will be working in our favor as far as keeping this storm at arm's length is this front that we're going to be watching dropping into southeast Texas over the weekend. So what this will do for us is provide like a barrier, no pathway for the storm to really get close to us. So right now the different models are placing Rafael in different spots, potentially going into Mexico, maybe fizzling out in the Gulf, maybe pushing a little further east towards Louisiana and Mississippi. That being said, watch the forecast. We're going to say this to you at least once a day, and that's because it's a pretty powerful storm and it is on our doorstep. So it's better to keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't do anything funny. Now, the front that's going to help protect us from tropical activity is going to bring back the rain chances, hiking it up to a 30 to 40% chance for some downpours this weekend. So factor that into any outdoor plans you might have had penciled in for Saturday or Sunday. A 28% chance for a shower ahead of that on our Thursday and Friday, but yay, no rain for today. You don't have to worry about a thing except enjoying the beautiful sunshine. Live look across southeast Texas. Those temperatures are holding in the mid-70s for now. Conroe, a cool spot there at 71 degrees. We are starting to warm up though because the clear skies out there are absorbing some of that sunlight. So anywhere across the area, 5 to 10 degrees warmer than where we were yesterday for the most part. High temperature today, 84 degrees. You'll feel that right around 3 o'clock. But the good news is that you get to enjoy a really nice, comfortable day until 5:30. That's the sunset time for today. Nice and comfortable, I say, because the dew points are fairly low, anywhere between the 50s to low 60s. That's going to be different as we move forward. We're going to see the humidity start to increase, so dew points will be in the upper 60s to low 70s, that downright tropical feel. And you'll notice what the wind is doing. It's coming back in out of the Gulf. And so not only are we going to be humid, but we're going to start to increase those rain chances. Isolated, remember, Thursday, Friday, and then a front moving in Saturday morning, but that front is our friend. Remember, it pushes Rafael out of here. All right, 7-day forecast looks like this. Watch for some scattered storms Saturday and Sunday. Otherwise, it's a pretty tranquil forecast, I'd say, guys. A little on the warm side, a little on the humid side. This is the pick of the week today, so enjoy it.
All right, thank you, Cam. It is now 10:38. We're taking a closer look at 3 other big races that we're following this morning.
Starting with the race for Harris County Sheriff. Democratic Sheriff Ed Gonzalez was elected back in 2016, and this year he's being challenged by Republican Mike Knox, who had a long career with the Houston Police Department and most recently served on the Houston City Council. Gonzalez is currently in the lead.
All right, now let's take a look at Harris County Flood Control District Proposition A, which would be a tax rate increase to pay for ongoing maintenance and operation of the county's flood control infrastructure. Very tight race here, okay? 51% for, 49 against, according to the Harris County Office of Management and Budget. The average homeowner would see a tax rate increase of about $60 a year. And then there's the race for Fort Bend County Commissioner Precinct 3.
Yeah, this race, as you know, has gotten a lot of attention in recent months. Incumbent Republican Andy Myers is being challenged by Democrat Terrell Patel. Now, if you'll remember, Patel is facing criminal charges for allegedly using a fake Facebook profile to post racist comments about himself to gain sympathy among voters. Myers is currently in the lead.
All right, turning to the race for the U.S. House now. The Associated Press called the race for former Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. He'll take over the seat held by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who, as you know, passed away in July.
Now, until then, Democrat Erica Lee Carter will take over that seat in the House. Here's Stephen Goen with reaction from both sides.
This 18th District congressional seat was previously held by the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee for about 30 years. Overnight, her daughter Erica Lee Carter won the special election to fill the remainder of her mother's term, about 2 months. Former Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner also winning his race, representing the 18th for a full 2-year term that starts in 2025. On election night, both Turner and Lee Carter said they did not take their wins for granted, promising to work hard for the people of Houston and carry on the legacy of those that held the seat before them.
This is our moment, and this is our opportunity to really lift up every single person in the 18th Congressional District. And we need to make sure that just like we have been blessed, that we pass those blessings on to someone else.
All right, this morning the vote count continues as election workers across the nation work to get the final ballots tallied.
Here's a look at one of the most controversial local races we've been tracking for you this morning, starting with the race for the White House. This morning, the Associated Press and CBS News is projecting that former President Donald Trump is now the president-elect. As of now, the Trump-Vance campaign is leading in the Electoral College and in the popular vote. As for the Senate race in Texas, Senator Ted Cruz has declared victory over Congressman Colin Allred with 53% of the vote there.
All right, back to HISD's bond proposal. Prop A is projected to fail with 58% of voters rejecting $3.98 billion in bonds aimed at addressing the district's infrastructure needs. Prop B is projected to fail as well with 58% of voters deciding against upgrading the district's technology infrastructure. This would have set aside $44 million to improve tech across Houston campuses.
And while the final votes are still being tallied this morning, CBS News is predicting that Republicans will gain control of the Senate. That includes the race here in Texas, as we just mentioned, after incumbent Senator Ted Cruz secured his victory over Congressman Colin Allred last night.
Devon Robbing live outside election headquarters this morning. Devon, this is the hub for the biggest county in Texas. What happens there next?
Well, Ron and Steph, good morning. Ballots are still being counted here in the Harris County Elections Office, with more than 90% of those ballots that were cast yesterday already accounted for. And as you guys mentioned, yes, Senator Ted Cruz has declared victory in the Senate race here in Texas, which had a lot of historical nature tied to it between him and Colin Allred. Now, Senator Cruz has served in the Texas Senate since 2013 and defeated Allred after capturing 53% of last night's votes. Last night, he was joined by his family and supporters in downtown Houston, alongside Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. Cruz took the time to thank his supporters while also thanking his opponent Colin Allred, who he commended for running a, quote, hard-fought campaign. Meanwhile, Congressman Allred was joined by his supporters in Dallas, and he too congratulated Senator Cruz on his victory, while also thanking the women who were a huge part of his campaign's focus on reproductive rights. Political experts we spoke with, though, say the outcome of this election had everything to do with messaging from both sides of the aisle.
This is a full systems failure for the Democrats. The issues they chose clearly didn't resonate with the voters they thought that it would. The way they approached the candidacy for Colin Allred was very top-down instead of bottoming them up the way that the past Democrats had done. So it just was a failure of message, it was a failure of infrastructure, and it was a failure of delivery.
Now, Cruz, who had a lead over Allred from the beginning of this race, spent much of his campaign focusing on border security, while Allred, who out-fundraised Cruz, centered his focus on reproductive rights and a bipartisan border security bill. Now, this Senate seat here in Texas has been dominated by the Republican Party since 1988. Live in Houston, Devon Rahman, KHOU 11 News.
Yvonne, thank you. The news of former President Donald Trump's apparent return to the White House has now reached people all over the world this morning.
Yeah, CBS News correspondent Leah Mishkin is in London with that part of the story.
Donald Trump. President Trump. Donald Trump.
It's the headline buzzing around the world. News of Donald Trump's presidential victory. A Trump win is what most Israelis were hoping for.
I think it's good for Israel, yeah, no doubt. It's better than Kamala Harris.
Israel's prime minister called it history's greatest comeback and a new beginning for America. Ukraine was also tracking results closely as it relies heavily on billions of dollars in U.S. military support. Trump has said he could end the war with Russia in 24 hours if elected.
You're the president. Please do it, Mr. Trump.
Ukraine's president congratulated Trump on a, quote, impressive election victory, words echoed by other world leaders like Britain's prime minister. But on the streets of London, Brits didn't hold back.
I think the American people are bonkers. I think no one's ready for Trump again, let's be honest. It would have been nice having a woman in the office.
It's an election millions around the world were invested in, even though they didn't have a vote. Leah Mishkin, CBS News.
All right, it is 10:45 right now. Kim, how are things looking for the rest of the day?
Things are looking so nice. I want to especially highlight the dew points outside. That's the measure of moisture. They are about as good as could be. So 50s is really comfortable. Bryan College Station's enjoying that, Tomball's enjoying that, but even Sugar Land, Richmond, you're getting in on some of that. Fort Bend County, it is really nice. Harris County, for the most part, pretty good too. Dew points are in the low 60s. This is what it looks like out there. Nice and bright. Sunshine is back. No signs of any shower disruptions today. Because the sun is back, though, it is a little warmer than where we were yesterday. 76 degrees right now for just shy of 11 o'clock in the morning, but with low dew points, it actually feels like 76. It doesn't feel any warmer than that. This afternoon, we will climb up to highs in the low to mid 80s. I think Bush Intercontinental Airport gets up to 84 degrees right around 3 o'clock. A mixture of a few clouds out there, but again, no rain. Here's a snapshot of tomorrow morning, 6:30. Maybe you encounter an isolated shower if you travel up 59, 69 to get to downtown. And then your Friday afternoon, if you work downtown, maybe you take your lunch inside the tunnels because I am expecting a couple of isolated showers. Saturday morning plans. Maybe you're trying to pencil in a Saturday morning walk or a run. You might want to postpone that because we are watching a front that's going to bring us another round of some widespread showers. But that front is a good system because it could keep another system that's in the Gulf away from us. I'll have a little bit more detail on that in a few minutes, guys.
All right, thanks so much, Kim. Turning back to the election, one of the big issues that candidates were debating was reproductive rights.
Now we're learning that 7 states have voted to cement reproductive rights into their state constitutions. Those 7 states include Arizona, Colorado, New York, Maryland, Missouri, Montana, and Nevada. And all of their abortion access measures are expected to pass. In New York, Colorado, and Maryland, the measures will maintain current abortion access, which right now is legal up to the point of viability. In Missouri, the amendment will expand access to abortion, which is currently banned with no exceptions for rape or incest. And in Arizona, their amendment is expected to overturn the state's current ban on abortion, which prevents the procedure after 15 weeks.
Other states had similar measures on their ballots, but those failed.
Naomi Ruckham has more on the push for reproductive rights.
It was perhaps the most divisive issue outside of the name at the top of the ticket: reproductive rights and abortion. In the wake of the Supreme Court's 2022 decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, abortion rights groups turned to the ballot, placing women's health care directly in the hands of voters themselves.
My individual rights are super important, as are my girls.
I don't think women's rights is the #1 issue for America right now.
10 states had abortion on the ballot. In Florida, Amendment 4 failed. The measure would have overridden the state's ban on abortion after 6 weeks. But supporters could not garner the 60% of votes needed to pass, disappointing Democrats in the state.
It is not the end of our work, it is the beginning.
The measure did, however, earn a majority, 57% of the vote, which supporters welcomed as a small victory.
It is still a historic outcome that demonstrates how the majority of Floridians oppose Governor DeSantis' 6-week abortion ban.
Pro-choice measures did succeed in other states, however, including Missouri, which currently has some of the country's strictest laws, banning abortion entirely with the exception of medical emergencies. In Arizona, voters also passed a constitutional initiative allowing abortion rights up to fetal viability, generally considered around 23 or 24 weeks.
All right, Naomi, thank you. And while abortion was not specifically on the ballot here in Texas, it's still a major issue for Texas voters. Now, let's see the comparison between the results in Texas counties from this year's presidential election and 2020. So we're talking about Tarrant County and then a major emphasis right now on border counties like Maverick County, Starr, Hidalgo, Webb, immigration and border security, big issues on the ballot this year. The candidates both talking about how they were going to fix that border crisis. So as we compare 2020 to 2024, Trump versus Biden 2020. Take a look at these border counties. Now, watch what happens when I press the current race. So this is 2024. Everything flipped red. So that could explain the results we're seeing now with Trump's stance on the border. Ron.
All right, thank you so much, Steph. And throughout the election, our Verified team was busy dispelling misinformation, and that includes what happens to the millions of campaign dollars that both candidates raised. Brandon Lewis verifies.
The 2024 presidential race is expected to break spending records once all the calculations are finished. And many people are asking Google if the candidates can do whatever they want with any unspent money that was donated to the campaigns. So let's verify. Our sources are the Federal Election Commission, the Federal Register, and the Center for Public Integrity. All of our sources say the laws about unspent cash are pretty specific, and it can't just go into the candidate's personal bank account or towards personal expenses. Candidates can use the money to wind down their campaigns, like settling outstanding bills and paying the cost of closing offices. The Federal Election Commission says candidates can also give donors a refund, donate the money to charity, or pass the money on to national, state, or local political party committees. Or they might decide to just hold on to it for potential future campaigns. So, no, presidential candidates cannot do whatever they want with leftover campaign funds. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
Brandon, thank you. Our Verify team is still hard at work for you right now. So if you have a question you'd like answered, you can reach out to us anytime. Just send an email to verify@khou.com.
All right. How about the weather? Let's take a live look outside. It's beautiful. Hey, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
It sure is.
Beautiful day for a neighbor.
It's a beautiful day for Kim Castro to talk about how long we're going to see rain-free conditions.
Well, you get to enjoy it at least for today. But you know what? The rain coming back is actually a good thing because we need some fronts to protect Southeast Texas. That's what keeps tropical systems away from the Lone Star State this time of year. And right now, I know it's November, and we're tracking a hurricane which is expected to become a major right before it hits Havana. It's already the strongest Category 2 hurricane at 110-mile-an-hour winds. It's moving in a pretty healthy jog to the northwest, 14 miles an hour, and it'll have some pretty significant impacts there for Havana over the next few hours. Throughout the day, it'll make its trek past Cuba and into the Gulf. By tomorrow afternoon, the National Hurricane Center has us weakening some because of the land interaction, but it won't be until this weekend that it really gets disheveled. And that's because right here in the Gulf, luckily, there's some upper level wind currents that are expected to rip this storm apart. So not going to maintain hurricane strength as it gets closer to us. It'll drop down to a tropical storm by late weekend. And then notice the cone of uncertainty. Ooh, it's big. That means a lot of different possibilities as to where Rafael will go. And that's going to have to deal with the timing of the front that I'm going to talk about. But first, Here's the wind shear, so upper level wind. Let's have this drop down a little bit more. That'd be good to continue to rip up the storm. But so far, it's strong enough to have Rafael weaken significantly. And then our next kind of golden ticket is going to be the front that brings back the rain chances Saturday morning. That's going to at least push any energy away from us this weekend. Now, this has to line up well with the movement of Rafael, and then we would be completely in the clear. But for now, the different scenarios that the models are putting out is that what's left of Rafael goes closer to Mexico, or maybe it fizzles out in the Gulf. We have to watch this thing regardless, because it's a storm and it's pretty strong right now. So just keep that in mind. We'll give you updates as Rafael crosses over Cuba and enters the Gulf. We'll have a better understanding as to what it does at that point. But for us, what you need to know, don't worry about carrying an umbrella today. We are rain free. A slight chance for an isolated shower Thursday, Friday, but don't cancel any plans. Outdoor plans Saturday, especially for the early part, and I think you might have to move those back a little bit. And then Sunday, you still have a pretty decent chance for some isolated showers. So let's walk you through future track. Here's a snapshot of Thursday morning. Pretty nice. Cloud cover is definitely in place. You'll feel more humidity and maybe a sprinkle as you're heading into work. Friday afternoon, I think a couple of downpours, that's a possibility, but it's only at 20%. Now, Saturday, I'm increasing those rain chances because we've got some organization to lift up the moisture. That's the front. So along 5969, you'll notice that passes through your neighborhood by 6:30 in the morning. So that's a look ahead at this weekend. A look at right now, wow, beautiful. Most areas seeing clear blue skies, a little bit more cloud cover in Pearland right now, and you saw that shot at Galveston. It's cloudy. Some of that north breeze will start to make its way to the island, breaking up some of those clouds a little later on this afternoon. High temperature for this afternoon is 84 degrees. You'll feel that right around 3 to 4 o'clock, and you get to enjoy the sun until 5:30 tonight. Yes, the days are getting shorter until we get to the winter solstice, but it's a good day to go outside because the humidity is low. It does start to increase tomorrow and stay pretty high through the weekend. Your 7-day forecast looks like this. Today it is dry, it is humidity free for the most part. Tomorrow, more humidity, more rain chances, and then some scattered storms for the weekend. 40%, that's when we have that front rolling in. We'll drop it to 30 on Sunday, and then we'll make way for some nice sunshine and calm conditions as we head into the following week, guys.
Nice and calm is a beautiful thing.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Kim. The time is now 10:56. Before we go, here are top 3 things to know as the election results hit the newsroom.
Starting with the projected winner in the race for the White House. Earlier this morning, the Trump-Vance ticket claimed victory. CBS News also projected that he won the race. He spoke with his supporters and promised unity in the coming days.
As for the Senate race here in Texas, Senator Ted Cruz has declared victory over Congressman Colin Allred with 53% of the vote.
And finally, trouble for both HISD bond proposals. As of now, it looks like neither will pass.
All right. Hey, thank you all for joining us on KHOU 11+. Our election coverage continues, of course, at noon on TV. And you can catch all of our previous election coverage on our website, khou.com and KHOU 11+.